2:30 a.m., Black Sea, 10 miles off Kinburn Spit. This is where Russia's vaunted defenses would crumble under the largest drone swarm ambush in recent memory. The Magura V5, an 18-foot, 2,200-pound surface skiff Moscow once mocked, cut through the water at 46 miles per hour, rendered nearly invisible to radar by Ukraine's Swarm Phantom countermeasures. Inside its hull sat 700 pounds of high explosive, primed to ram the depot gates. Hidden behind a false deck, 5 Shrike FPV assassins waited, 3-pound ninjas, each packing roughly 2 pounds of C4 and trailing 7-mile fiber-optic lifelines that laughed at Russian radio jammers. Their objective? A $50 million ammunition depot loaded with 500 tons of Grad rockets and 152mm shells, the supplier lifeblood for the Mykolaiv assault, defended by a single Panzer S1 and 30 complacent infantrymen. Their confidence would prove fatal. 72 hours earlier, Ukraine had mapped every blind spot, calculated fog patterns, and choreographed a deception. It was audacious, to strike when the Russians felt safest, when the guards toasted their luck in cold vodka. From a covert coastal base, the Magura V5 slipped into the night. The true weapon wasn't just explosives, it was the weather. A 50-degree thick fog banked the Black Sea, cutting visibility to less than 300 feet and producing a thermal inversion that ruined Doppler radar's returns.
2:24 a.m., 5 miles from Kinburn, a hatch opened and 5 Shrike drones spilled into the night. Each rose to 20 feet, hugging the curvature of the sea and staying below line-of-sight detection. As each drone left the Magura, a hair-thin fiber-optic cable, thinner than a human hair, uncoiled from a hidden dispenser at high speed. While the Russians prepared for a radio onslaught, Ukraine deployed a physically unjammable lifeline. Clear, high-definition video straight to remote operators via Starlink, bypassing the jamming that the Panzer S1 happily threw at the sky. 2:35 a.m. Inside the Panzer S1 command vehicle, a tired radar operator squinted at faint, ghost-like blips 5 miles out. The Kuja 4 EW array kicked into life, bathing the area in GPS and comms noise. On the shoreline, 30 infantrymen lifted IR scopes and opened fire. The first Shrike became fireworks, shredded carbon fiber and sparks. The screen went red. Unidentified aerial intrusion. That's when Ukraine played its hand. The Magura V5 suddenly cut engines and drifted, a convincing retreat. The Russian officer logged a successful deterrent and ordered the hunt for the launch point. He had no idea the true threat was multiplying.
While attention focused on the apparent ghost, the remaining Shrikes split. 2 hugged the coast, 2 skimmed above the waves on separate axes. The fiber-optic lifelines kept video and control intact despite the jamming. The Russians flailed. Cannon rounds, small arms, and even an RPG that severed a cable and threw a controller into static. 2 Shrikes went down. 1 was crippled. The operation teetered. With the defenders convinced the intruders were cornered, the Magura V5 suddenly roared back to life. Engines engaged. Silent Hunter became a 2,200-pound torpedo screaming toward shore at 46 miles per hour, exploiting the Panzer's blind sectors while its radar chased aerial ghosts. At the same instant, the last 2 surviving Shrikes left the depot itself alone. Their targets were not the magazine, but the Panzer's exposed generator and radar array. As they dove, the chessboard closed. The Ukrainian command, cold, clear, and binary, issued the execute order. The first Shrike detonated against the Panzer's generator. The second smashed into the radar array. Power died. Sensors went mute. The Magura V5 slammed the main gate and detonated. 700 pounds of explosive punched through 3-foot reinforced concrete and into the depot's bowels.
What followed was physics and timing, not chaos. The ramming warhead tore a hole and delivered its payload deeply inside. The initial pressure wave, concentrated, brutal, launched shells and rockets from racks, tossed munitions into the open, and ignited propellant.
secondary cook-offs consumed the depot in a self-feeding inferno, thousands of detonating rounds, temperature spiking into the thousands, and a fireball that fed on its own ammunition. The blast's electromagnetic burst fried remaining Panzer electronics and anything soft in range. The depot didn't merely burn, it detonated itself into a 450-foot crater, and a night sky turned orange. In the immediate aftermath, the toll was staggering. 500 tons of munitions gone, a $50 million facility obliterated, infrastructure and sensors baked into useless scrap. Emergency crews on the Spit scrambled, roads clogged with panicked troops, and the Black Sea seethed with laser-lit drifting debris. NATO satellites later confirmed the scene, a smoking, thermally dead scar at the precise coordinates Kyiv had targeted. Strategically, the impact was sharp. The Black Sea Fleet's ammunition pipeline was severed overnight. Naval and artillery support for coastal operations dropped sharply. With resupply frozen, offensive operations in the sector stalled. The strike was not merely a tactical success, it was a decapitation of a logistics node, achieved with a hardware bill of just a few $100,000 and clever timing. This wasn't Ukraine's first experiment in surface drone warfare. Previous ops with Magura-class vessels had shown the same pattern: stealthy approach under fog, FPV drones as escorts and decoys, and surgical strikes that turned expensive air defenses into theater props. Back in Moscow, the questions came fast and furious. How had a handful of inexpensive fiber-tethered drones humiliated a multi-billion-dollar defense network? The answer was a blend of weather, deception, and engineering, and it left naval commanders scrambling. Economically, the damage bit hard. Replacing 500 tons of ammunition and repairing depot infrastructure would cost many millions. Insurers raised premiums on Black Sea shipping. Supply chains hiccuped. Politically and psychologically, the blow was worse. Troop morale plunged, drone paranoia rose at the front, and public outrage over lost materiel and perceived failures spread through social channels. Recruit numbers swelled for Ukraine. Riots about the war's cost and leadership mistakes rippled through Russian cities. The Panzer S1's reputation, once a symbol of invulnerability, turned into a cautionary tale. Tactically, the operation forced a rethink. The fiber optic tether neutralized EW. The fog and thermal inversion neutralized radar. The Mura's physical delivery punched through hardened storage. This combination turned multi-layered defense into a single domino. For Ukraine, it was validation. Cheap autonomy, creative use of environmental conditions, and coordinated deception could deliver strategic outcomes without massed armor or manned air power.
Marshals, command reshuffles. In theaters near the front, Russian artillery resupply dropped sharply. Frontline units reported rationing and halted advances. On the ground, the crater and charred perimeter testified to the operation's precision. Satellite passes and thermal overlays matched Ukrainian after-action telemetry down to milliseconds. The timing, angles, and sequences were what the planners had simulated in backrooms and test ranges. The Kinburn operation became a case study in how asymmetric tools and ingenuity could flip strategic balance. For the sailors and soldiers on the Spit, the horror was immediate and human. The blast, the heat, the panic, frantic attempts to pull wounded from mangled vehicles, and the smell of burning propellant. For the remote operators in Kyiv, it was a mission logged and validated. Objectives met, logistics crippled, and enemy's muscle cut at its roots. Beyond the practical outcome, Kinburn sent a signal. Modern dominance would not be guaranteed by the largest platform alone. It would be contested by those who could fuse low-cost autonomy, clever deception, and precise timing.
A $15 million radar could be rendered mute by a strand of glass. A $50 million depot could be turned into a crater with less than $250,000 in kit. That arithmetic, cheap means, huge effects, rewrote calculations in command rooms from Tallinn to Tehran. If you found this analysis compelling, hit like and tell us what tactic surprised you most. Would you have attempted a different deception or accepted greater risk for potentially bigger gain? Drop your reasoning below and we'll break down the options in the next deep dive.